Welcome into Basketball by Association. This is the association related to basketball. My name is Arky Shea. That is Joel C. Cortez. Joel, we're technically mostly already 100% in the playoffs. Let's do it, buddy.
It's a facial hair free episode. As I see, you're starting something there too, my friend.
This is laziness. This is the wake up of, oh, hey, I have a 2.5-year-old who is not allowing me any time to do anything. Actually, brief story, less than 30 seconds. Tried to take care of my own personal stuff while he was running around. Got done with one part of it, turned around. Kid's got mascara on his face. So.
I mean, he's a future in glam rock. there are worse things to have a future in, I would think.
I'll tell you that you've gone through it obviously before. I shouldn't say obviously. I don't know if we've sort of talked about it much on the air.
Three times, in fact. Yeah.
This age where they just have to touch everything is really the worst.
I would say it gets better, but really it just gets different. For those of you who are longtime parents out there, you're nodding your head. It just gets different. The difficulty just changes over time. That's all.
It's just the most interesting and annoying time to be a Papa Bear, where everything has to be inside his hands at some point. And as soon as you take one thing out, it's like, well, I got to look at the next thing that's near me and grab that. Take that out, grab this, grab that. So you know what? Even when I take the hands-off approach, I'm like, maybe he'll just get bored with it. Like, he doesn't get bored with it. He just wants to still touch.
Those kids who, are obsessed with shiny things and need to move on from one to the next, they grow up to be Elon Musk. So, they might be really rich someday. Who knows? Taking our dig. All right, let's name the episode here real quick. I'll move us along. Today's episode 141. We have two choices. One is Dr. J, which would be really sweet, but I'm pretty sure we've named a Dr. J episode in the past. The other one was a little bit more obscure, and so I definitely wanted to go this route. I'm not sure you'll be able to guess him until the very last clue, but let's run it down either way. A one-time All-Star, who was also the 92-93 Sixth Man of the Year, a two-time All-Defensive player, and that's it on the career accolades. But 8 seasons with the Portland Trail Blazers, that's who he started with, did 4 seasons in Phoenix, 2 with Detroit, 3 seasons in New Jersey, and 2 with Golden State, at least partially. So played until he was 40 from the 89 through 2007 seasons, and this is one of those guys that I think was a pioneer as far as being a stretchy, positionless, modern forward who logged major minutes at small forward, power forward, and even small ball center throughout his career and could knock down some threes. Here's the final clue, though. He was immortalized by the Jordan Shrug. Immortalized by the Jordan Shrug, because it's this guy in the frame with Jordan. He was supposed to be guarding Jordan.
Oh, wait.
And he was also one of only 2 players that I remember in the 90s that wore a headband during the early 90s. It was a big deal because we were well before the, everybody's got bands all over. Maybe you had knee pads like Patrick Ewing, but guys weren't blinged out the way that they are now, and this is one, along with Chris Gatling, one of the headband pioneers in the NBA.
So, is it Cliff Robinson?
It is Uncle Cliffy.
Man, R.I.P., man. Golly.
Rest in peace. Yeah, we lost him way too early in 2020, age 53.
That guy, that guy was really, really productive in the NBA. Like, for not having the whole mantelpieces of awards all over. Like, that dude played a long, long time because he was a really, really effective player. For
5 seasons at 18 points per game or more. Yeah. Was able to knock down a 3 in an era where big men, really couldn't. Granted, he wasn't taking anything near the volume as today.
What did you say, came in at 88, 89?
89 was his rookie season with Portland. Yeah, so, but could play defense, could block a couple shots. Not a huge rebounder, but just did a little bit of everything. Averaged over a steal per game through 10 seasons of his career.
He was
a
really
lot
good in per
more
game
than
for a
in
long
multiple
time.
seasons. Yeah. And was just a great rotation guy is the way I think of Cliff Robinson. You wanted a Swiss Army knife like that in your rotation, whether as a starter or six man, whatever. But Cliff Robinson was guaranteed to be one of your top 7 guys, I think.
Yeah, did he? You probably don't have it, but that dude had to be close to 20 a game. Like when he was in Portland. Like I don't know what it was sort of rounded out to be.
92, 93,
like
when he was 6th man of the year, 19 points per game. He did go to the All-Star game the following year at 20, then 21 for 2 straight seasons after that in Portland until the 96 season. And then I think he went back to the bench because it's down to 15. He did average 18 points per game once with Phoenix during the lockout year where things got weird. And that was a year that Phoenix was doing small ball and Uncle Cliffy was playing some center too. But yeah, he never went back to averaging 20 again after that. But yeah, could just do a little bit of everything. So
man, like I feel bad. Like he died really young.
mm-hmm.
Like he was like early 50s or something. But before he died,
53.
before 53. Oh
Mm-hmm.
God. Before he died, I think he had a stroke like a few years before that or something. I think I'm getting that right. Like he had a stroke, I think, like because he only died like a couple of years ago.
Right. It was in 2020, and I think it was COVID-related complications, but along with some of the other complications that he had previously.
I think he had a cancer. So I think he had a couple of cancers. I don't want to disparage.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I'm trying to think, and then we can move on to the playoff talk. I think like 2013, 14 on, like he had it rough. Like there are just some medical issues that just kept compounding and getting on top of each other. I think it may have been some COVID related, but I could have sworn he had at least one bout around with cancer. And I thought it was 2, maybe even 3, because I thought I remember a story about him having like a tumor removed out of his jaw or something, maybe his mouth or something. I don't know. I had to look at it.
I don't remember with him.
Let me hold on. I'll find it. I don't know if I'll find it. I don't know. This is the Cliff Robinson episode. That's what we're going to call it. We're calling it the big band, the big head band episode. I'm about to call it bandana, but those are different. Joel C. Cordes, just as we predicted, we still don't know everybody in the playoffs yet, but we have had a semi-boring, semi-interesting play-in sort of a setup, and we have, as we're recording this on Friday, we have 2 more spots to determine. The 8th seed in the West and the 8th seed in the Old East. Joel, let's first talk about who is in the East and the West. Let's start with the West. Congratulations to the franchise that rarely gets any coverage, that rarely gets into these playoffs and is talked about. But congratulations to the LeBron Jameses. The fighting LeBron Jameses who are going to the playoffs for I think just the 3rd time in franchise history or something like that. Yeah. It's a really low number.
Every time the Lakers catch a break, which is so often in their history, it just reminds me of a C. Montgomery Burns quote from The Simpsons where he goes, in all seriousness, finally the rich white man catches a break in America. That's just it's the Lakers. I will give hats off. It was an ugly 4th quarter and overtime. The Timberwolves ran out of gas. They were up most of that game. Yeah. It never felt safe. I was never confident they were going to pull it out.
Really?
No,
Super
not
fan
once.
You
not
just felt like it was going to all come to the
yeah. That it was going to come back. I was going to be surprised if the Wolves, because they were shooting the lights out from downtown, and they were overplaying the starters because no Jaden McDaniels with the broken hand, no Rudy Gobert with the puncher's choice, and shorthanded on Naz Reid to begin with. So the Lakers are big up front now. Karl Anthony Towns stayed out of foul trouble somehow until late in the game, and then it finally caught up to him. But you could just see they got gassed. The offense stopped moving. Jalen Noel is hurt. He played 13 minutes off the bench, didn't give him anything. So it never felt safe. You knew at some point LeBron was probably going to be able to put together something of a run. And it was ugly, but it happened. And the Lakers defend well, and they play hard. They've been a different team since the trades. They are so much more complete, as we've talked about. So as much as I hate the fact that the Wolves should have to lose to the Lakers, as much as I hate to see the Lakers move on and catch those breaks. I give hats off to them because honestly, they did play a complete game and they were healthy. They had their full complement of guys there and ready to go. Mission accomplished by the end of the season. It was turbulent. They lost time for LeBron. They lost time for Anthony Davis, as seems to happen every year now. But unlike many of these years past, those two guys and most of the supporting cast were available to play regular minutes in playoff, scenario games. That hasn't happened. That's been their Achilles heel. And so they did successfully navigate the season to get to this point. The seeding doesn't matter. I'm not picking them to like get out of the West or anything crazy like ESPN and everybody else who's, always on the Lakers and the Knicks jocks will do. But hats off to them. They deserved it. And Minnesota is walking wounded. I am not confident about the game against OKC even. Go ahead.
But I do say this: all they wanted to do with the Lakers was just to be healthy. I don't think I love Memphis that much more than Los Angeles, to be honest with you. Like I don't.
I do a lot more than people think.
I don't think that's an opening shut series. Like I think that's a longer series. I think LA can compete deep into that series. I think Memphis is better, and I think now they've had a chance to go through the playoffs and get a little deeper into the playoffs. They do have some of that battle testedness, but I don't think that Los Angeles is just going to walk into Memphis and just give them the game. Like I think they can absolutely compete, make this a 6 or 7 game series.
Yeah, and I agree with Charles Barkley and a lot of people who pointed this out that the absence of Steven Adams inside and Brandon Clark
is big. Even though Steven Adams has been gone for months, like now that he's not coming back, it's a big.
But you need a savvy guy who knows how to commit those hard fouls and patrol the paint. You need that against Anthony Davis, and you need Brandon Clark's motor to try to counteract the motor of a Jared Vanderbilt. Like you are asking a lot of Jaren Jackson Jr. and a lot of those other forwards up front now. Xavier Tillman's going to get probably some major burn in this series, and he usually gives them productive time, but he's really going to be tested with somebody like Anthony Davis. But as you brought up, Memphis is not an inexperienced playoff team anymore. They've been through this now for multiple rounds. They're younger, they're faster. They can hit you in so many different ways. They play with that grit, they play with that grind. They're a little banged up front. I will give them that. And that is the window of opening for the Lakers. If the Memphis Grizzlies were fully healthy, even a fully healthy Lakers, I'm saying Memphis in 5, maybe even 6. But there is a window here, and I do think this has a potential to go 7 games. I'm going to give it to Memphis, being at home, being that the Lakers will have 0 answers for Ja Morant, just 0. There's not a guy on their roster equipped to try to guard him. They're probably going to put Jared Vanderbilt on Ja, honestly, because he's the lead defender at this point, which opens then some things up inside. But Vanderbilt defended guards a lot last year in Minnesota when they asked him to do that. So, yeah, it'll be a tough series. It'll be a fun one. I'm looking forward to it. But anybody who's like, well, the Grizzlies aren't, they're a young, inexperienced team, and the Lakers have been there. No, it's the other way around. Like the Lakers
have one guy that's been there.
Right. They have LeBron and they have AD and they have a couple other old heads. But by and large, the supporting cast at this point is way more inexperienced than the supporting cast of the Memphis Grizzlies, who have been doing this consistently all year and for the last couple of seasons. And I think are going to, number one, not back down and not be afraid of, oh, it's the Lakers, oh, it's LeBron. They're going to relish it. And Memphis has taken a very almost pathological approach and a joy in embarrassing people and roughing them up and running them out of town. And that is part of their identity at this point. And I'm here for it. Like, this is not something that ESPN and everybody should be like, oh, the Lakers are the favorites. Get out of here, guys. Come on.
Well, the Lakers have won 2 of the 3 they played this year. So there is also a little bit of like confidence in your Spurs too.
They are dangerous and they are capable. I'm not, the Lakers can win some games in this series and they will make it interesting. I will absolutely give them that.
Okay, so let's give some props to someone in the East that literally, I think no one that was the quote unquote talking head had winning that 7 versus 7A matchup, which was Atlanta beating Miami 116-105 on
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday. Joel, this surprised, I think, a lot of people who were sort of watching this. We talked about all that experience, of course, with
Mm-hmm.
Miami and how they sort of just got to get to there, right? Got to get there. Now,
Yep.
they're in danger potentially not getting there. Talk about that in just a few moments. But congratulations to Atlanta, a heck of a win to be able to get themselves the 7th seed in a few extra days to rest and get ready for their matchup, because Atlanta did what nobody thought they were going to do, and that was beat Miami in Miami and beat them pretty handily at the end.
Yeah, and Atlanta came out with a chip on their shoulder. They played hard. Miami was still, I think, the tougher team, but Atlanta was tough enough. The Hawks are kind of one of those teams that get a little bit of a soft moniker, and rightly deserved, and especially with how inconsistent they've been. But the Hawks can score, and the Heat absolutely cannot. And when the Hawks' shots were falling, and they did a much better job of putting Trae Young in position to facilitate and open things up, he did not kill the ball with over dribbling. They did not make the mistake like they did in last year's series, where they got absolutely punched in the face by the Heat, of trying to live and die by Trae Young early on. Instead, they got him downhill, moving the ball, playing off the ball. They got other guys like DeJounte Murray, DeAndre Hunter especially, and then Bogdan Bogdanovic coming in too. They got those guys going a little bit. Saddiq Bey gave them some good minutes. Onyeka Okongwu was great. Clint Capella had like 23 rebounds.
Saddiq Bey gave him like 35 minutes in that game. Like, he played a lot.
He did, and he missed a lot of gimme shots, but he made just enough of them too, and is not a complete pushover defensively, which is what they needed. It's another big, wing body, and they've got a few of those guys that are interchangeable. And then once those guys were in enough of a rhythm, Trae Young was able to find some seams in the second half, and when he started to really finally heat up, you got the sense that, no pun intended there was no chance that Miami was going to be able to go step for step with them. The Heat have struggled to score all season long. They got nothing out of Kevin Love in that game. They didn't even start him. I don't know if he's not healthy or they just didn't like the matchup. They gave him one stint.
3 minutes, 2 points.
Yeah, they gave him that one stint and didn't bring him back whatsoever.
Right.
So, yeah, Miami is coasting on reputation at this point. They've got plenty of guys who know how to defend, plenty of guys who know how to execute, but it's kind of like the, a mid-major college team that's good enough to get into the tournament, and you start to then get up against the more talented teams. And I know, mid-majors lately have gone against this, but a lot of times you get to a certain point and it's like, we're just not capable athletically to hang with the rest of these teams and score at the rate that they are, even if we're playing good basketball.
If Miami can't force the tempo and force the issue and force the style, this team's not that good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're good enough. Like, they just don't make a ton of mistakes in general. They're a very savvy team. They're a smart team.
Mm-hmm.
They're talented enough to sneak into the playoffs, and they can still win tonight. And still be the 8th seed, but they've got no shot to be able to get out of the first round, like just none. And I know we both like Milwaukee a lot this season throughout. We've talked about them, especially down the stretch, but against this Miami team, like, Miami may be able to rough them up and get one, maybe. But like, look at
that. Would be a loss of focus game for the Bucks, honestly.
It had to be like they won. Milwaukee wins the first two like by 20 and 24, and game 3 they get into a close one, and they were lackadaisical into the fourth quarter, and Miami just was able to hold on to get that one. That's the kind of scenario there.
And honestly, and this is a great segue just to preview the 2-7 matchup in the East. I feel the same way about Boston and Atlanta now. It's like, all right, congratulations, Hawks. You got past the Heat bugaboo. You get into the first round, but now you're going to see a Boston team that arguably defends as well as Miami does, but has no problem finding guys to put the ball in the basket. And so, yeah, Atlanta's going to be able to score some points. They're not going to be able to get enough stops against a Celtics team that is fully loaded, that is mostly healthy enough. In fact, Boston may rest some guys a little bit, which hopefully they don't overdo. But unless you have some
they had
really
the last 3 games to rest dudes,
unless you have some really truly magical Trae Young moments, and
he did them in New York. He did them in New York.
Oh yeah, I mean it's possible, it's capable.
But this Boston team is more talented than that New York team was.
And Trae Young is going to be guarded by Marcus Smart, not whoever the Knicks were trotting out at point guard at that time. You know.
Oh, you mean technically still defending Defensive Player of the Year?
Yeah,
he still technically can do it.
Yeah, and they've got plenty of other options to rotate in there. Derek White, Malcolm Brogdon, Jaylen Brown. They're all going to get a crack at Trae Young. So DeJounte Murray is going to have to be big. He's going to have to knock down shots. But this is one of those times where it's an elite Eastern Conference team, and it's an okay Atlanta Hawks team that took care of business, and you're happy to see them get there. I think Atlanta gets 1 and Boston wins this in 5.
Well, let me say this real quick about Atlanta in that Hawks game just a minute ago. In that Heat game a minute ago. I want to say this about Miami, I should say. This was the bench production in that game for Miami. Kevin Love, the 3 minutes, the 2 points, he was -3. Caleb Martin, 29 points, no point. 29 minutes, no points.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Cody Zeller, 4 minutes, 2 points. Victor Oladipo, 9 minutes, 0 points.
0 points, yep.
But Kyle Lowry, 33 minutes, 33 points. So, okay.
Kyle Lowry was phenomenal in that game. That may be one of the last big, Kyle Lowry dominant games we get to see. And that's why you tune in every night, because you just don't know. And there's certain guys where it's unexpected, but I don't know how many of those we get out of Kyle Lowry the rest of the way here.
Yeah, Harrow was 12 of 23, Adebayo 5 of 12, Jimmy Butler 6 of 19. And then Vincent was 2 of 6, and Strus was 1 of 5. It's just,
and Vincent got hurt too, so they didn't even have him for part of it.
It's not a formula set up to win this season's NBA championship.
And they didn't even trust Duncan Robinson, who's supposed to be a shooter, to get into the game once. Despite the power outage, they didn't, trust Kevin Love with more than the 3 minutes after what they saw there. It's just an indictment of the roster overall. And honestly, if you're Miami, I think it's time to go back to the drawing board. I don't know if it's a full blow up, but you're going to really have to reshuffle the deck this season. And I think everybody, Hero, Butler, and Adebayo, have to be at least on the table to see what you get and how you want to reconfigure it, because I think they've reached the end of the line with this presently constructed roster. Maybe not the core 3 guys, but for sure the presently constructed group.
Okay, so let's real quick talk about who we were going to predict to win Friday, and then we can move on for the actual playoff that we think they're going to show up. What's the first? The first game is Chicago and Miami. Chicago with a huge comeback against Toronto to be able to get that game 105. Joe, Miami's limping, not trusting certain players to get in the game. Chicago's flying a little high, got some momentum, feeling pretty nice after that big win against Toronto to eliminate them. So, who do you think comes out of that one? Who's our 8th seed?
I like Chicago because even though they were down,
Miami to lose back-to-back home games.
Yeah. I saw enough out of Chicago. Toronto's a good team. Toronto was hitting shots. They were home. Chicago continued to weather the storm. They played a lot more focused than they've been throughout much of the year. And a lot of Chicago had good looks that just weren't going down. I thought they should have been closer into that game for quite a while. They had some dumb turnovers early on, but there was just a lot of looks.
26 from 3. That's probably not happening again.
Right. There was a lot of looks that just didn't go down, but normally you will be absolutely fine with those. And once the offense did start to click at all and the shots began to fall, because remember, 726 is the final look of it. Those threes went down. They started to go down as time went on. But once the offense finally got into gear a little bit, you saw how dangerous the Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Nick Vucevic, group can be. And Alex Caruso, Patrick Williams, hats off to those 2 guys, because they single-handedly saved that game for the Bulls. When the Bulls could not hit shots and they were down by double digits, Caruso and Williams came in the 3rd quarter and really noticeably amped up the defensive intensity beyond what they had been trying to do in the first half, which was passable, but the Bulls couldn't score. They came out, they were forcing turnovers, they were getting big stops. It got the gum out of the wheels just a little bit and gave some easy baskets in transition. And what do you know? Suddenly some of the shots started to fall again. I just see a a ceiling with Chicago that Miami does not possess. Now, granted, Miami has that ability to really make the game ugly and make shots not fall and win something that's in the 90s. You know, they can do it. So this is not a slam dunk for the Bulls by any means, but I'll pick Chicago here just based on what I saw. And prisoner of the moment, also what I saw out of the Miami Heat in that loss.
Chicago's 3 of 19 from 3 through 3 first 3 quarters.
Yeah.
So yeah, it got substantially better to get to 7 of 26. Woof, right?
And I think that defensive intensity will carry over. This is actually a benefit of them having played, you know, with 1 day rest. They're still conceivably in rhythm, whereas Miami, coming off a stinker, yeah, you have had some time to rest a little bit and maybe practice some more, but I don't think that's the problem for the Heat. And so you're coming into your game with zero momentum after that loss. I think the Bulls will defend well enough and shots will fall a little bit better. They just have more weapons than Miami does.
DeRozan went for 23, Levine went for 39, and Vooch went for 14 and 13 in that game. I can't see Miami dropping back-to-back games like this.
Okay.
Like at home, I should say at home, specifically. Like it's inconceivable to me that this Heat team would go out to with a whimper at the end of the year. I think they're going to start the game getting really physical. Now Chicago's won all 3 matchups between these two teams so far this year. But I think Miami is in literal – they both are. But like I think they are in do or die like franchise mode. Chicago's still got some youth and some upside. But this is kind of it. This is the run for Miami before they're had – like as you sort of already alluded to and talked about, they're going to have to completely reimagine this roster. They got a couple of dudes that can take over if they need to. Not Kevin Love, but they do have a couple of dudes that can get just bucket after bucket. And this is just a gut feeling for me, right? Like this is not pure analytics. It's hard to win on another team's court. Chicago just did that, especially in the playoffs. Chicago just did that for Toronto. Miami, this is it for them. And I mean, like, this is franchise it. I don't know. I like Miami. I think this is an ugly game. This is a really ugly game. I think they come out there and they have to beat up Chicago.
But here I'll trust Zach LaVine's ability to get points and get hot in a way that maybe only Tyler Hero on the other side can do for Miami. And so does Chicago need another 39 out of Zach LaVine? No, but he probably has to be over 30 for them to be able to win this. And you know the Heat know that too. It's going to be Jimmy Butler guarding Zach LaVine, and we'll see how he does.
Last time these two met, Zach LaVine had 18 against Miami. Let's see if I can find the other two numbers real quick for you. Had 21 back in December. And I mean, I'm sure it doesn't mean that much more going all the way back to November or before then. Actually, I think he only played twice against them, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the knee injury probably kept him out in the early one.
Yeah. So we'll see. Neither one of those teams is getting past this game. As far as in the playoffs, so we can move on and go.
Yes, please.
to the West, where your Timberwolves are trying to hold on to get that 8th spot. But how about scrappy, spunky little OKC? OKC. That's the super young 400 draft picks to go in the next 3 years. That's the team that I think a lot of people didn't expect to sort of be at this spot, especially when they had the big man go down at the beginning of the year, before the year even started. Yeah. So what do you think? Like, I know you don't love them against OKC, but you can't hate them against OKC for tonight.
No, I don't like Minnesota against OKC, and this pains me because this is all self-inflicted. But Rudy Gobert questionable with the back injury that occurred before the punch. Karl Anthony Towns now a strained calf muscle. That probably comes from overplaying in the Lakers game, where he would not have had to overplay as the primary defender on Anthony Davis and the primary scorer. That doesn't have to happen if Rudy Gobert is in the lineup. And the Timberwolves have a much better chance in that game against LA when they shot the ball so well if Jaden McDaniels is around as the primary defender and an occasional dunker and an occasional three-point shooter. But the primary defender against both LeBron and whoever was getting hot for the Lakers at the time, completely self-inflicted. It overtaxed a lot of the rest of the roster. Anthony Edwards did not show up whatsoever, was absolutely awful in that Lakers game, looked like he was a deer in the headlights, but he had just come off of, and I don't use this lightly, he had come off a Jordan-esque game against the New Orleans Pelicans in which he so physically overmatched the Pelicans defensively. He was taking the ball right out of Brandon Ingram's hands multiple times when Ingram came down the court, and Edwards just said, give me that. He was jumping over people's backs to get rebounds. It was inspiring. He helped them come back from that 14-point win. It was like, this is amazing. I will say this, if the Wolves are to have any chance, it comes down to Edwards proving, which he has done before, that he does not have terrible games back to back. The Lakers game was terrible. Edwards is going to have to be an absolute monster. Towns obviously can't get in foul trouble, but we don't even know what the Wolves are going to get out of him. There's no Naz Reid either. They are banged up front. Maybe they go small in this, but no Jalen Noel. They're down a scorer. Like Oklahoma City in a single game, I am really afraid of. In a series, not so much. But in a single game like they showed against the Pelicans, I mean, I've been saying this since the beginning of the season. I will ride or die any day with that guard trio of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Josh Giddey, and Lou Dort. You saw that in that Pelicans game, what each of those three guys brought to the table, the interchangeableness. They're all big and strong. They've grown into their NBA bodies at this point. Dort is a fantastic defender who now can put the ball on the deck and knock down a three. Josh Giddey is a budding star who's like a triple-double alert most nights and is not a terrible three-point shooter already. You get some major Jason Kidd vibes out of him. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a full-blown superstar. And the only reason that Oklahoma City did not win more games is because they didn't think they were going to win games at the beginning of the season, and they did not want to win games. When Chet Holmgren went down, they thought they were going to be in tank mode, so they were consistently resting for injury purposes Shai Gilgeous-Alexander throughout this season. And then all of a sudden, both Jalen Williams turned out to be way better than anybody thought they were. The rest of the bench turned out to be at least, I don't want to say cohesive, but there's enough young bodies in there to keep plugging in. And that backcourt with those three, way better than advertised. So when they finally put them all together and let them play a little bit, here you are. And Oklahoma City is not only good enough to beat the Wolves, which at this point, again, the Wolves are walking roadkill, but Oklahoma City is good enough to steal a couple of games from the Denver Nuggets in the first round. They're not going to win the series, but they are way better than people understand. When you watch how they execute, they're what the Houston Rockets are supposed to be, just loaded with talented guys, but the Thunder actually know how to play and know how to play together. Like they're on their way, and this is a good chance for them to show out and steal a game or two.
Nobody thought Shea Gilgeous-Alexander was going to be this when he came to the NBA. Nobody thought that he was going to be this kind of scoring machine. This kind, but now it took him a while to sort of get there, but this year has exploded beyond, I think, what anybody sort of.
But you've seen flashes of it during the whole journey where you keep going, to
do it for 75, 80 games, like it's just it hasn't sort of been in his repertoire. People didn't think when he was coming out of Kentucky, right? And he was good at Kentucky. He was really good, but just didn't think this was sort of what he was going to be. He's going to be top 5 in MVP voting, which is phenomenal. For that game, whichever one of the Williamses you like, whichever Jalen you like, they both were played pretty well the other night. I think we're both like plus double digits in the plus minus, which was really, really good. I don't have a whole lot of extra to say for you. Like you could tell Shea it was early on, like was like, hey, let's go find everybody else. Let's go Lou Dort. Let's. And that team just sort of once they decided that they were just going to play for position and see if they, put it out on the table, see what they can do. They've really been in kind of a momentum, like a good momentum and a good space. Mentally, played really well together. Josh Giddey, as he's can't give him enough good praise. That kid's developing into something really, really talented and elite.
And a perfect fit with Swiss Army knife, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yep.
They are completely interchangeable in all the best ways. It's fantastic, and they're both like 6'7".
So I'll say this quietly because it's your team. I'm picking Oklahoma City.
Yeah,
but
I am too.
I'm with you, and I think because we've talked about for weeks now that Denver is the most vulnerable 1 seed we've seen probably in a while when it comes to that 1-8 matchup. I thought Miami could have been that a couple of years ago, but Miami was just unimpressive as far as they wouldn't blow you away with stats. They were just really tough and physical, so they weren't that weak of a seed. But, Mr. Joel C. Cordes, if there's going to be a 1-8 matchup that's going to cause havoc for the one, it's clearly the one in the West. And listen. OKC is the kind of story you want to root for. Like when it comes to sort of building up through the draft. That they've gotten some players that haven't worked, some that have. They got rid of some stars that didn't want to quote unquote be there, got a lot back. And so for as many people as try to shun the Thunder, once, Harden and Westbrook and Durant were no longer wanting to be a part of the team or even a part of the team afterwards, to see them finally sort of come back and be in an environment that loves that team, that when we talk about Sacramento being crunk when they get to start playing up, like Oklahoma City is going to be on fire if they can get this win tonight. Joel, I don't feel the same way about Minnesota Timberwolves fans, so I'm going to root for that story quietly. I'm going to root quietly because I don't want to do it too much to your heart.
Last thing I'll say, because I know we've got a bunch of other way better playoff series to look at.
Not better than that.
This is why you build culture and why culture matters, because from day one with this Oklahoma City Thunder group, and we're talking 3 years back, when they were all even younger and even more undermanned, they always played hard. They could lose by 50 points, and they did lose by 50 points multiple times along this journey over the last couple of years. And they were rotating guys in and out and taking a look, and like you said, shedding, players left and right, but also bringing different guys in to find who was going to stick. They always, always, always played hard, which is why they could steal games even 2 years ago against teams they had no business winning against as a G League level team, but they would do it occasionally. And it's been a little more. And as these guys have grown up now and started to play together, you get healthy, you get guys growing into NBA bodies, you get a few more picks, and they've got a few more coming on down the line. Plus they'll get, Alexei Pokashevsky back next year, who's been interesting for them. Chet Holmgren will be back for them next year, plus whatever else they bring in. The foundation is set that this is how we play. We will keep coming at you in a way that like the Miami Heat do, right? You never really shed the Heat. They continue to execute. They continue to play no matter what. The difference is Oklahoma City has young legs and some firepower behind them now that is still growing. It's a very imperfect team. They got a long way to go, but you see what they are trying to build there, and you see how scary this group can be if they keep it together and as they continue to add just a few more talented pieces. So yeah, and of course what's going to happen now that we say this, Anthony Edwards is going to come out, have 50 points. The Thunder will get good looks, play hard, not be able to knock down a shot to save their lives, which is what happens, and the Wolves will somehow sneak by them. But on paper, it's really hard to not only bet against the Thunder for this one, but to even root against them is harder. And this is coming from a Wolves fan who does not want the Thunder to win, but it is what it is.
This franchise lost by 73 points a year and a quarter ago. And now here they are with positive momentum. Not, like there's the sneaking in, right? Like you used to do as the 8th seed, you used to sort of sneak in. But this is a team that's earning their way into the playoff and playing really well. Like I know they don't count these playing games towards statistics and all, but if they win this night, they're technically a 500 team. They would have been 42-42.
And with a trio of guards that as I look up and down NBA rosters, I have a hard time finding another group of three.
That's the big number, yeah.
Yeah, that there's two guards out there, but three where I would go, no, I want them more. Phoenix, yeah, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant. I get it. That's probably where the conversation ends. But Golden State, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, who probably will come back for the playoffs.
Listen, Kevin Durant, as much as he handles the ball, like you could technically put him in the old F spot. You should. He's the old
Right.
He plays like much more like a guard than a forward, but
Would I rather have Josh Giddey, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Lou Dort than Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, and DeAndre Hunter?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Would I rather have them than Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum? Well,
No.
Two of those guys are kind of forward, so no.
Yeah.
But it's like they're up there. They are in that conversation already. As if you don't want to give them much respect, you at least have to say top 5 in guard trios.
Okay, that's you being the unkind and the
Yeah.
I get it. All right, let's talk about some of these NBA series. By the way, these series that don't show up on NBA TV, like these small market teams like Boston has an NBA TV game coming up. Phoenix at LA is an NBA TV game coming up over this next weekend. So is Milwaukee, whomever they play. I think we know who that coming up. That one makes the most sense out of the other ones. But Joe, let's just take them as we get them on the calendar. Starting on Saturday, the real playoffs. We've had almost a full week of not real playoff action. We're ready to get after it. Joe, let's start noon Eastern time. Your Brooklyn Nets are taking on the Philadelphia 76ers. So, Joe, I need to break down every single game. We're going to go game one. No,
we don't have time for that. We're going to roll through these.
Listen, whatever. We can stay till 4. I don't care. People don't know what time we started. It could be 3. Joe, it feels to me, even though I was early on the Philadelphia train, this should be Philadelphia's series. I'm more lukewarmer on this Philadelphia team than I have been the last couple of years. But this feels like a Philly shorter series, no?
I'll take Philly in 6. I think
6?
I think Brooklyn can steal a couple of games just because I really like the Wings, and they've got a lot of defenders that are going to make life interesting for James Harden and Tobias Harris. So really this comes down to and Tyrese Maxey. How quickly, though, can Joel Embiid dispatch with the undersized front line of the Brooklyn Nets? Because we know that Nick Claxton has become a really nice player, but Nick Claxton also needs to continue to eat about 10 cheeseburgers a day. Like, he still is filling into that NBA body. Outside of him, now you're talking Deron Sharp and Moses Brown. Yuck. You don't want that up against Joel Embiid. Or you're going undersized and you're asking Dorian Finney-Smith, Royce O'Neal to get some licks with Embiid. That's yuck as well. So if Embiid can stay out of foul trouble, gets into a rhythm, then yeah, this could be a 5-game series, maybe even a sweep. But I do think Brooklyn's ability to come back and get out and run, and the ability to depress Philadelphia's production out of the backcourt is going to generate enough looks, and there's enough different shot makers for the Nets that I can see them hanging around in this one. So I'll go Philly in 5.5. I'll split the difference here.
I think that's fair. Like, you could call the game at halftime at one point. I mean, they didn't call the 73-point midseason game or the December game a couple of years ago with who did OKC play that? Was that probably Memphis, right? I think it was Memphis. Doesn't matter at this point. Here's the important part. Philadelphia should sweep this series. Philadelphia should sweep the series. Philadelphia will not, because I can never say that again about a Doc Rivers-led team. No matter how good. If Doc Rivers was the coach of the Milwaukee Bucks and he was taking on this coming Miami team that's going to come out of the East, I'm still giving Miami a game in that. That's how much I don't trust some of the late game decisions or even the full game decisions. Doc Rivers frustrates me. But Yeah, it's Philadelphia. It's short series. 4,
Okay.
maybe 5. Maybe 5.
I'll say 5, maybe 6. But I totally understand where you're coming from. Like I absolutely understand it. I am a big believer in the Nets being able to play free and loose and not really having much pressure on them, and the fact that you have so many different wings. They've got something there that is very interesting that they can do something with. Philadelphia is just a bad matchup for them because Joel Embiid eventually is going to get Nick Claxton into some major foul trouble. And
He's going to bust him up.
The Nets have no recourse after that.
And I think I think Philadelphia knows this is sort of a big time year for them to sort of be able, because if they don't do it this year, or if they don't get as far as they can be able to this year, like it's going to start getting tougher for them, because this East is getting really, really good. And they had, I think, their prime spot like 2 years ago. Ever since then, you lose a grip on the chances. By the way, speaking of wings, the Atlanta Hawks fly into Boston. They'll be your next game on that Saturday matchup. That's a little 2:30 Eastern. Joe, you've already sort of hinted that you like Boston a lot in this series.
Boston
I, as a
and
Knicks
5.
fan, cannot say that. I also hate the Hawks too, so I think they both burn to the ground somewhat at some point. But if I'm going the way that my brain knows to, I think this could be a 6-game series. I think this probably is a 6-game series. But I'm still going with Boston.
I'll go Boston in 5. Yeah, for the reasons said before.
Well, the thing about the NBA is you don't get a ton of first-round big upsets. This is sort of the league that sort of gives you, like, if you're the 1 seed, you're the 1 seed for a reason. And you're probably the best team in that league. Let's move on to the New York Knicks at the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's your 5 p.m. Eastern matchup for Game 1. Now, it starts off in Cleveland, and I'll say this. Some people poo-poo on the Knicks' chances to beat Cleveland because the Knicks have poo-poo their chances to beat Cleveland. So, Joe, why are you picking Cleveland, and why are you wrong?
I'm picking Cleveland in 7. I think this is probably the best of the opening round series. I think home court advantage matters in this one. The Knicks are going to win at the Garden. They're going to win games in this series. They're going to really push the Cavaliers. I love what New York has done all season. In the end, though, the Cavaliers' ability to generate superstar looks from 2 different places, from both, Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, is something that the Knicks have in a different way, but it's up front with Julius Randle. The problem is Randle is going to be operating against one of the best defensive front lines, period, in the NBA. And you can get Jared Allen in foul trouble, but congratulations. Now you have to deal with, other big bodies, Isaac Okoro, and especially Evan Mobley. They'll burn some fouls for Lamar Stevens and Robin Lopez and those guys, Dean Wade. Julius Randle is going to have tougher sledding up front than Garland and Mitchell will with the Knicks backcourt. And the Knicks can defend, like RJ Barrett, good defender. Jalen Brunson, not a pushover as a defensive player. The Knicks can get scoring off the bench from Emmanuel quickly. They got a lot of options. Quentin Grimes was absolutely on fire of late. You all know how much I love Josh Hart. So it's not that I'm picking against the Knicks here because I don't believe in their ability to win this series. I think they can. I think this is going to be close. It's going to be down to the wire. But we've learned time after time after time that superstars win playoff series, and the Cavaliers are just set up to deploy their superstars a little bit better in this series than the Knicks are. But it's not a knock against what New York's bringing to the table. This is going to be a slugfest and reminiscent, I think, of some of the best Cavaliers-Knicks matchups in their franchise histories in the playoffs.
Joe, that's very nice of you to say. You're wrong on all fronts. I do think it is the best series that we're going to see out of both the East and the West for the first round, especially. I think the Knicks are loaded this year. Now, that's comparatively speaking. The Knicks have been loaded.
I agree.
But they are, and yeah, you've been very complimentary of the Knicks this year, and I appreciate it. For the first time in our friendship, I've gotten you hear you say nice things about the Knicks. I think this team is poised to do something really, really special this year, and I think that could be get to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Whoa!
I don't think could be
okay.
Listen, they are one of the top 5 teams in the old NBA in terms of rebounds, defensive rebounds. They are in the top 2 or 3 as far as defensive field goal percentage. They're a pretty good defensive team when they want to be. They have individual players on that team that can lock down when they want to do it. Hard to tell for me for a full slate of the season how much a team is into and individuals are into defending from one night to the other. But this feels like the Tom Thibodeau type series. Like, this is the one where I think he wants to grind as much as possible. He shouldn't. He should be more free-flowing because that's what's worked a lot this season. He's got dudes that can do it. Right? Julius Randle, that poor man's MVP, should have won a couple of years ago. He's back to his old self this year. Jalen Brunson's been phenomenal. Emmanuel Quickley's been really, really good for this team. This is a really, really stacked team to be able to grind to possibly to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think they're the slightly better team, to be honest with you. I don't love the fact that I think it's going to go 7 games, and that 7th game is in Cleveland, but I'm not intimidated by Cleveland and the Oracle, whatever their arena is called at this point, the Quicken Loans, whatever the owner, the Dan Gilbert Dome. I'm not intimidated by that at all. So, despite what you say, I say the opposite and the correct item. The New York Knicks win. They won't even worry about getting to 7. They'll do it in 6 at Madison Square.
Wow.
By the way, the Knicks have an ABC primetime game in one of the first 3 or 4 games there.
Well, duh. It's the market.
They don't always do that. They get like a Saturday afternoon ABC game. I think they got in the Atlanta series. Anyway. All right, Joel C. Cortez, let's continue on with the NBA playoffs. By the way, let me ask you this. So far, I don't hate what you're saying as far as the schedule is concerned. I think I can see where you're at in each one of these series. So, it makes a whole lot of sense. This is where I get you to get a little bit of wonky. You ready?
Okay.
Golden State at Sacramento. Joel, get crazy. Tell me Sacramento eliminates these Warriors. Tell me that they put the death nail in the Warrior dynasty. Tell me, Joel. Tell me.
Are they capable of it? Yes. Are they going to do it? I don't think so. I think Andrew Wiggins comes back, starts to play more and more and more throughout the series. He's going to come off the bench in game 1. How rusty will he be? I don't know, but I think just that feeling of them being at full strength is going to be energizing. They've been inconsistent, but Sacramento hasn't been here before. If you're Golden State, mission number 1 is just extend the series. Extend the series as long as you can go, because the longer this goes, the more it's in the Warriors' advantage. You get more home games, obviously, than for Golden State, although this is going to be a Sacramento home court advantage in 7, but you're going to get home more often, and you're going to put Sacramento into a scenario potentially in a game 7 that they are not used to and that you are more than well enough equipped to do. However, this comes down to how playoff ready in their first appearance together, De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. You're going to go as far as your stars. Yeah, you're going to need guys like Kevin Huerter. Harrison Barnes has done this before. Davion Mitchell, guys like that to knock down shots, defend at a high level. Keegan Murray as a rookie, in the bright lights. You're going to need those guys to knock down shots, yes. But you are going to need Sabonis to stay on the floor, out of foul trouble. You're going to need Fox to be knocking down shots and be able to get to the cup. It's not just a matter of can he knock down some jumpers. He's got to be able to collapse the defense. Golden State's not invincible by any means. But I'm going on pedigree here because I think that does matter, especially when you get into matchups with a team that's never really been there before versus a team not just who's been there, but has got rings on their fingers and did it just last year. These are the defending champs. Like, I know the Warriors have been depleted all year and disappointing through much of the year, but these are the defending champs. So I'm going to take Golden State in 7, but I could see this going 6 for the Warriors. And again, I love the Kings. It's going to be rocking at home. It's going to be so loud. But I've said this before. Sometimes those overly loud crowds, when it's their first time back or their first time in, it's a nervous loudness. And you can actually turn that against the home team by just taking the crowd out of the game and making them murmur a little bit. And now it becomes pressure. It's not encouragement. It's pressure to do well. Sacramento, this is about as big of a challenge as you can have in an opening first round when you've never been there before. And they're the home team.
I don't disagree with that last part that you said. This is probably the biggest. If you're going to be back for the first time in 18 years and you're going to be excited and new back into this, and you've been really good this whole season, who do you not want to see? Probably as healthy as they're going to be and as they've been all season and at least a long time. Defending champion that's won this thing like 400 years. That this current dynasty is still on. But, Joel, that's over this year. Last year, we called it. We said that was the Remember Us tour, the comeback tour. Yep. They won that championship. We were all over it. This year, I think it's done. I think the Warriors dynasty is done, and that's no disrespect to them. They have been elite, but they are old. They are really miles ridden. Like there's just a lot of dudes with a lot of laps on them legs. There is the issue of coming back with Wiggins' health and how soon he gets integrated more into the lineup. And I think Sacramento's younger, they're faster, they don't play defense, which means this will be an awesome series. That's probably why ABC decided, one of the reasons they decided to put that as their Saturday night primetime game, is that you're going to get a great environment and probably 400 point score combined between the two. But I think Sacramento's too much. Sacramento does not lose at home. Sacramento is one of the best teams on the road this entire season. They have been special,
and they've beaten the Warriors a couple of times already.
And they have. I think it'll get tougher for them in the West. I do think they're a better match. Phoenix is a better matchup, I think, for them if that ends up being what the matchup is later down the road. But this Warriors team, I think we're just believing too much in what Golden State has brought to us in the past. And we don't want to give the laurels to the team that's here now with Sacramento. And listen, here's the great thing about Sacramento. They're going to get their comeuppance at some point. They'll get their heart broken. But young teams do win in the first round, especially if they've been this good all season long. Joel, moving forward, shall we to our Sunday games? We can run through these. We already talked about Los Angeles at Memphis to a degree. That's your 2 p.m. Sunday game. Who you like Memphis a lot more in that series, right?
Yeah, I'll take the Grizzlies in 6.
Yeah, I'll take the Grizzlies probably it'll probably end up being 6. Did you see that John Morant decided to file a countersuit against the kid who
I did, yeah,
threw the basketball at him? Did you hear what it read?
No, and I mean, I don't know if we have time to get into that now, but
it's like 3 sentences. It's really funny. Getting hit in the face is the quote, with a basketball hurts. For a professional point guard like Mr. Morant, an injury to the eyes or nose could be career-ending. That's part of.
He had a reason to be angry if it was a cheap shot, not to react in the way that he did. So
he just didn't catch the. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. That's not the way to make it go away. By the way, John. That's not how you do it. All right. Milwaukee gets to host to be determined. That'll probably be, in my opinion, it's going to be Miami. You have a different example. You think it's Chicago. But regardless, we love Milwaukee a lot in this
Bucks
series,
and 4. Bucks and 4 either way. The other team will be lucky. Maybe they can steal a game. This is the NBA. It does happen. They might be able to steal a game, but Bucks and 4 unless something's really out of whack here.
Yeah.
We have seen Mike Budenholzer teams rest for too long and then come out really. I mean, think of like a couple of years ago, the Bucks with the Orlando Magic.
That's true.
The Magic steal a game 1 because the Bucks were just rusty rested and it did not look good, but it didn't take them long to right the ship. So there is the possibility to steal a game 1 in Milwaukee. You ain't going any further than that. But
yeah, and I think they learned their lesson from that. Like, let's just dispatch these guys early enough. Los Angeles at Phoenix. It's the other Los Angeles team.
Yeah.
Joel, I tend to think Phoenix is going to be burning up at the right time, burning up in a good way. Los Angeles, I feel like they just haven't been all of what I think they were going to be this season.
Yeah.
I think Phoenix wins this game at 6. Or it's a series in 6.
I don't disagree with you. The Clippers are good enough to win a couple games. We don't know what level of Paul George we're going to get or when. That's been a running theme with these Clippers between him and Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi looks fully healthy. The rest of the roster is kind of sort of healthy, There's a lot of veteran guys there. They can execute. That's why they're going to hang around in this series. Phoenix has not played all that much together with Kevin Durant since he's been brought in. They've had injury issues of their own.
But when he's playing with that team, they're really good.
Yes,
really good.
And again, superstar power. That the Suns have two full-blown superstars, full stop, and they have two other stars in Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton who have done this before, have played together. The supporting cast is a lot better than people understand. Even after the Mikal Bridges trade and Cam Johnson goes out too, they've still got enough. They have enough to do what they need to do. LA, yeah, sure, you might have two stars. You might get your two superstars, but we don't know that. And then the rest of the guys have really been more role player level and not star level this year. So, yeah, Clippers win a couple of games, but this should be the Suns. And I'm disappointed to say that also because I had picked the Clippers in the preseason to be the Western Conference finalists, if you recall. I think I had said Clippers Bucks in the NBA Finals.
You're still alive for that.
Yeah, but I've got no reason to make that type of pick. So I agree. Suns in 6. But this is one of those series where you do look at the opponent and you go, the Clippers are capable of winning this series. They are. Just not likely, but they are. They're deep. They're veteran. They're well coached. They got a lot going for them. It's just the Suns, it's a superstar league, especially in the playoffs.
And the last of the triple header for TNT on Sunday, because ABC will get that first game of Los Angeles and Memphis, and why wouldn't you want that game if you're ABC, is the to-be-determined Oklahoma City Thunder, which I think I just determined, taking on the Denver Nuggets. Denver's the most vulnerable 1 seed I think we've seen in a while. I'll repeat that from earlier in the podcast. I think Oklahoma City can win a game. Maybe... probably had to be an OKC for it to happen. Yeah. I still think Denver probably wins in 5.
If Minnesota gets there, I say Denver in 5. If Oklahoma City gets there, I'll say Denver in 6 in the type of series that is way too interesting, way more interesting than it should be, and that makes Nuggets fans sweat just a little bit, especially because you're going to, like you said, have a couple of playoff games in Oklahoma City at that point. The Nuggets are the better team, but again, the disparity between the number 1 team, even just in the standings, and the number 8 team, the Nuggets won 53 games to be the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
The Oklahoma City Thunder won 13 fewer games. It's not that big of a disparity between them. The Timberwolves won 11 fewer games than Denver did. So, yeah, the Nuggets should be able to do this. They are a very good team. They're getting a lot of disrespect for being the number 1, but it's like somebody had to win the West. It's just the way it was, and Denver was good enough to win. Could they have been better? Sure, but were they also, playing it safe to integrate Jamal Murray? Did they also help flesh out their bench quite a bit at the trade deadline? Yes. They got a multi-time MVP over there in Nikola Jokic. So let's not sleep on the Nuggets to still potentially be the West best and get to the NBA Finals. But Oklahoma City, if they get there, they're going to be plucky, and they can win a game, maybe even 2. Minnesota, I think, gets 1, an Anthony Edwards type of factor game there. But, Denver moves on either way.
I said before that Sacramento doesn't lose at home. They actually lose pretty frequently at home. They're one of the best road teams.
It was the roads,
I mentioned. But Denver is one of those teams that the best home team. But on the road, the 3 games under 500 on the road. So they don't play well generally on the road, or they play roughly about 500.
And all the pressure's on them, right? All the pressure's on them as the 1 seed. Oklahoma City, if they get there, zero pressure. Zero pressure whatsoever. Especially
if they win game 3. If OKC can win game 3, listen, if you split in Denver and then win a game 3, oh my God, that then you just blow Denver up in the face. But if you can be respectable in the first 2 games in Denver, and they come home and win game 3, you have every right in the world to think that you can win that series.
Yeah.
So, all right, Joel, that's going to do it for us. Those are your first round champions. Do you crown a champion after the first round?
No, I'm not going to pick a champion.
No, but like the first round champions, they're all champions. So the Knicks will be the champions of the Knicks Cavaliers series.
Whatever you need to do to sleep at night, I guess. But Uncle Cliffy, I hope we did you proud. Rest in peace, big fella. This has been Basketball by Association. YouTube, like, share, subscribe if you want the video version. If you want audio only, Spreaker, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. It's been fun, Arky, Shea, and next week we'll do it again.
Next week we'll play 2 total playoff games. That's how they like to spread these out. We got lots of basketball to talk about.
We can all overreact and think we know exactly how the series will go. We always get burned
just
by
like
that.
the Orlando-Milwaukee series, the championship Milwaukee team that won that.